Presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump clashed in a 90-minute live debate, less than 2 months out from Election Day. Pope Francis flew to Singapore for the final leg of his trip through Asia, heading to one of the world's richest countries from one of its poorest, Timor-Leste. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump clashed in their first and perhaps only debate before the presidential election. During the 90-minute battle between nominees from the Democratic and Republican parties, the two candidates showcased their starkly different visions for the US on topics like democracy, national security, and American foreign policy.
Very well known.
Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
No, she was black until
Harris's performance seemed to be the opposite of President Joe Biden's in June, with sharp, focused answers, while Biden at times appeared incoherent.
And that Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. You have worked with.
The debate took place less than 2 months from Election Day and hours before the first early ballots will begin to be mailed in parts of the country.
By the way, for 4 years.
Germany has announced stricter controls along its land borders with France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark and Luxembourg to begin from next week and to last for a minimum of 6 months. These measures are being introduced as a last resort following a series of deadly knife attacks by migrants which sparked public fury and are largely seen as the catalyst to the far-right party gaining the most amounts of seats in state elections in Germany since the Second World War. The third East German state of Brandenburg is set to vote in just under 2 weeks, and polls suggest that security is top priority amongst voters. Tighter controls at the Austrian, Swiss, Czech and Polish borders are already in place, and the German government is hoping that by introducing these new stricter measures, it can continue to return thousands of migrants at the border. However, experts are warning that the danger of the far right is not just that they can get enough votes to govern alone, as this seems unlikely, but rather that parties on the left may begin to adopt far-right policies in a bid to claw back voters, especially ahead of the federal elections next year. Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.
Pope Francis flew to Singapore for the final leg of his trip through Asia, the longest and furthest of his papal trips and one of the lengthiest trips of any head of the Catholic Church. He's heading to the financial powerhouse and one of the world's wealthiest nations from Timor-Leste, which he visited to encourage as it struggles with poverty and high unemployment. Francis will be the second pope to ever visit Singapore, after a 5-hour stopover by the late John Paul II in 1986. Singapore was originally part of Francis's travel plans to the region in 2020, but it was derailed by the COVID-19 pandemic. During the trip, he will meet with Singapore's Prime Minister and President, as well as other government officials. The highlight of his trip will be a public mass at the 55,000-seat National Stadium. He wrapped up his visit to Timor-Leste with a rally of the nation's young people, who make up the majority of the country's population of 1.3 million. Francis urged them to work together in forming the country's future and build upon the foundations of older generations who had secured their independence from Indonesia in 2002. During his visit, Francis drew a crowd of 600,000 people for a record-breaking mass, nearly half the country's population. During his tour through Asia, Francis also visited Indonesia and Papua New Guinea.
Over 140 Ukrainian drones targeted multiple Russian regions early Tuesday, killing at least one person. Just outside Moscow, one woman was reportedly killed as drones hit 2 residential buildings, according to Moscow Region Governor Andrei Vorobyov. A video published by the Russian Telegram channel MASH appeared to show a drone crashing into the building.
Высоковольтная. Дом рядом.
3 people were injured in the attack, the Moscow governor said. The reported incident marks one of the largest drone attacks on Russian territory since it started its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Overall, Russia's defense ministry said it intercepted and destroyed 144 Ukrainian drones over 9 Russian regions. This would be the second major Ukrainian drone attack on Russia this month. On 1 September, the Russian military said it intercepted 158 Ukrainian drones over more than a dozen regions.
The European Commission has won 2 court cases against big tech companies Apple and Google. Apple will now have to return 13 billion euros in taxes to Ireland after the European Court of Justice revised a previous ruling and concluded that the US company did benefit from artificially low taxes between 1991 and 2014.
Ireland granted Apple unlawful aid, which Ireland now has to recover. Few member states were relying on tax rulings and aggressive tax planning arrangements to become a more attractive destination for multinational investment. This harmed other member states and the European taxpayer, of course.
This is the final judgment, but in a statement, Apple, whose European headquarters are in Ireland, still expressed disagreement and insisted that there has never been a special deal. The US company believes the Commission is now trying to retroactively change the rules and ignore that Apple was already paying taxes in the US. But for Oxfam, this is a case of tax justice that will help small companies, but above all, citizens that will benefit from recovering taxes.
We are just talking about fair taxation. When a company like Apple paid 0.005%, this is unfair. There is no European citizens, maybe some billionaires, that pay so few taxes. So I think it's really an issue of a level playing field. I mean, we should pretend companies and also wealthy individuals to pay more. These are not profit then that go into investment.
In the second case, the European Commission also won a judgment in its favor against Google Shopping. The European Court of Justice ruled that the company favored their own services over their competition, abusing their dominant position in the market.
Russia launched joint navy drills with China. That was announced by Russian President Vladimir Putin. He states the drills are an attempt to check Russia's combat readiness and to strengthen military cooperation with its allies. The Russian leader blames the United States for disrupting the balance of power in the Asia-Pacific region.
Фактически США провоцируют гонку вооружений, не считаясь с безопасностью своих европейских и азиатских союзников. Формируют предпосылки для опасной кризисной ситуации в Европе и в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе. Хочу подчеркнуть, Россия должна быть готова к любому развитию обстановки.
The naval exercises are the largest of their kind in 3 decades and will span the Pacific and Arctic Oceans, the Mediterranean, Caspian, and Baltic Seas. The drills involve over 90,000 troops, more than 400 vessels at sea, and 120 aircrafts and helicopters.
This is the 3rd year in a row that Vienna has been named the most livable city in the world by the Economist Intelligence Unit, taking into account many considerations falling into 5 categories: of education, environment, healthcare, infrastructure, and culture.
When we talk about Mercer or even the Economist Intelligence Unit, I think these studies or these rankings are very comprehensively looking into factors such as the availability of green space or public transportation or the infrastructure in general. And I think as someone who lives here, Vienna ticks many boxes here and really is a very livable city, a city that just works very well. Vienna perfectly combines Northern European efficiency and Southern European lifestyle. And this lifestyle involves a very high degree of enjoyment. It's not so much a matter of what you can do here in the city, it's more a matter of what you want to do.
It sounds simple, but I think the transit system actually is a really important part of it, because it's really easy to get around. You can get basically anywhere from point A to point B within 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, pastries are quite expensive, but it's not primal need in life, you know? So food is quite expensive. That's the only thing that is kind of sad. And that Vienna could do better. But yeah, I'd say the best part is that you can just go out and stay out. And it's safe, and it's reachable,